Hello, everybody. I work in education. I'm a teacher, so the topic interests me. And I've noted that other countries, other cultures have got particularly interesting ideas of what education may well be. And that's our topic today. We're going to think about a German version of education, which dates back a couple of hundred years. We're going to look at Bildung. That's going to be our topic. And I'm kicking off this topic with an image, which I find really, really interesting. Have a look at this image. What do you think of it? What do you think of this painting? It's called The Monk on the Beach or The Monk at the Sea. Do you like the painting? And that's with your partner. Why? Why not? Can you guess what period of art history this painting comes from? What do you think the painter was trying to capture? And can you guess this painting's relevance to today's session on education? Pause here and natter with your partner about those questions. What can we say about this? If you did like the image, I'm guessing that you liked the image because of the period of art history which it comes from. This is representative of Romantic painting, which is of course a very German field, the Romantic movement. The Romantics, most of them didn't work, so they had lots of time to travel, they had lots of time to investigate nature, and typically they were overwhelmed with it, the mysteries of nature. And we're really seeing this in this image by Caspar David Friedrich. So we're seeing this big, enormous sky, this endless dark sea. The beach, I'm guessing it's winter, it's cold, and that little human being, that pinprick of a figure, that little monk, is completely overcome by the enormity of it all. My last question, the relevance of this image to today's session. Maybe it's fun if I don't say that just now. If it isn't already clear, it will be quite shortly. Let's move on. Hey, we're talking about Bildung, which is a kind of word for education. So maybe it's nice for me to ask you, how would you define education? What is education for you? With your partner, try to find a definition of education in a sentence or two. Pause here. I find the act of defining education a quite fascinating thing to do. Being born in Britain, my instincts were to look in my Oxford English dictionary. Now, what is education? For me, a teacher, really fascinating. I'm asking it to myself, pretty often. Let's be honest, on a bad day, I'm giving a lesson and the lesson isn't going very well. I'm thinking, why am I here? What am I trying to do? What am I trying to do? And this question is not as stupid as it may sound. So let's ask for OED for help. What is it? Interestingly, they look at school and university contexts in their definition. Look at this, the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at school or university. And then they break this down further into three kind of sub-criteria, three sub-areas of that. The first one is the theory and practice of teaching. So education is about teaching. The second one is a body of knowledge acquired while being educated. And maybe here I'm becoming a little bit unhappy, a little bit grumpy with this definition. My aim is not to give you guys a body of knowledge. That sounds quite problematic, the idea of me giving you this knowledge, some kind of transfer of knowledge. And of course, there's a famous metaphor here, the idea of me having maybe a jug filled with water, pouring it into an empty glass. So this is quite problematic. Is it a body of knowledge? I'm hoping it's more than that. And the problematic nature of this Oxford English Dictionary definition continues with the next bit. Education is information about or training in a particular subject. Now, I think all Germans here would say, stop, hang on. In the German language, we have two different words. You have Bildung and you have Ausbildung, and they really are not the same. And Germans like to maintain that difference. So there you are. Is it training? I mean, the English word training, it makes me think of training a dog, training a dog to fetch my newspaper, or training a horse. Dear student, you're not like a dog or a horse. So I'm really unhappy with point 1.3 here. This is for me a problematic idea of education. Good. We're investigating how German ideas of education are different from Anglo-Saxon ones. So maybe this Oxford English Dictionary definition is quite nice as a kind of kickoff to this topic. What isn't education in Germany? Interestingly, though, there is another meaning of education in the English language, which maybe German thinkers will be more comfortable with. Have a look at this. An education is the formulation here, an enlightening experience. An enlightening experience. Hold on to that idea, because this is quite different from this teaching, schooling, transfer of knowledge idea. Good. Let's think about Bildung. Let's clarify some misunderstandings first of all. When I came to Germany and talked with Germans about this topic, I sometimes had some rather perplexing ideas. It was often told to me, it was often claimed by German native speakers, there is of course no English translation of Bildung. Is this actually true? If you're a German student, think about this, discuss it with your partner now. To be honest, in that reduced form, that sentence really is quite problematic. There are English words for Bildung in modern German. If I take Bildung as the modern German word, it really is easily translatable. The modern German usage of Bildung really is more or less the same as the English word education. And that really must be stressed. If I talk about the Bildungssystem, that's just like an English person or an American talking about the education system. So our interest in the word Bildung is not the modern German usage, not at all. When Brits and Americans are using this German term in the German original in their writing, they're celebrating a historic sense of the word. So my topic today is not what Bildung is today in Germany, it's what Bildung was in an earlier historic period in Germany. In particular, let's be concrete. You're seeing another Caspar David Friedrich image there. I think it's painted in Rügen. And you can see from the dress of these three individuals, we're talking about an earlier historic period. Think about the late 18th, the early 19th century. We're thinking about this time and these education discourses. Good. When we use the word Bildung, we're thinking about a particular approach to education, a way of doing it, a way of thinking about it, a kind of educational philosophy, you might say. But to be more precise, I should correct myself here, a kind of educational philosophies, a set of philosophies. I've got to use the plural here, a set of philosophies, a set of educational philosophies, because it is quite a plural idea of education, even if we can pin down commonalities. Good. In a minute, I'm going to investigate that. But first, let's just stay with the word, because the word really is fascinating. Bildung in the German language is a word which you get everywhere. And the word Bild, which is within it, is also a root of many, many words. So the word in German has many other meanings, describing various things, describing various processes. As an example, if you're an English speaker, you will obviously ask, hey, Bildung, is that anything to do with building? I mean, not in the bricks and mortar sense, but the word often is used in forms which describe processes of making or processes of things coming together. So it is very close to building. And you know, there is obviously a commonality in the etymology of the terms. Good. Now, these other German words with build inside, I think they add extra meanings, extra nuances of meaning to the understanding of education. In other words, you know, the fascinatingness of this word Bildung is in part because of the richness of the word. So an exercise for my German-speaking students, can you list such other meanings of words related to Bildung or related to Bilden? And to kick you off in the idea, you know, I want you to collect meanings with your partner. To kick you off, look at this. I'm giving you pictures here. You've got paintings, you've got pictures, and of course, Bild is a word for picture in the German language. In art, Bildnis is like a portrait, isn't it? Isn't that fascinating? So they've all got that root of Bild inside. Together, think about other words with Bild inside and draw out the meanings that we're finding here. Good. Other meanings of Bildung, other meanings of Bilden. You've got this idea of to make or to build that I've already outlined. You've got the idea of forming. You know, these ice crystals are forming on the icy coat of the lake. It means to shape, to mold. So shaping, molding, forming, if you like. It can mean to set up, to generate, and to develop and to grow. So a fascinating collection of other meanings which build can have, build, bilden, Bildung. This is really, really interesting. Hold on to some of these extra meanings. I think they're going to be kind of floating in the air when we consider how Germans see this word Bildung in this historic sense. It's also interesting to look at the etymology of the word, the roots of the word historically, as the modern usage slowly developed over time. The etymology is all about creation and creativity. The roots are really, really fascinating. We can trace it back to the 14th century. So go back to the Middle Ages. And it was a gentleman called Meister Eckhart who coined the term, but not thinking about education, instead thinking about theology. Look at this. So the context was theological. Meister Eckhart was translating from the Latin. Now, if you're an English speaker and you're translating from the Latin, it's not a problem if you find a word that you don't yet have. You can easily make a Latin word in English and it sounds quite authentic. You know, it really works. You can create new words very easily. In the German language, of course, that's a bit trickier, isn't it? Because German and Latin are much more distant languages. So when he was translating, he often had to make new Germanic sounding words for Latin concepts. What was the concept that he was struggling with to create this word? A really interesting one, very much one that is to be understood theologically and historically theologically. He was trying to capture a concept in the Latin that was very precise. He was describing a mystical experience sinking into Christ whilst parallel thinking about oneself as made in the image of Christ. Now, you're thinking, I've never had this experience, Magnus. You probably haven't. But think of, a monk or a nun back in the 14th century. Maybe they're praying, they're contemplating, and a lot of their time would be spent getting into Jesus, getting into Christ. Parallel to this, they're holding on to this idea of human beings as being made in the image of Christ, in the image of God. So a theological experience, a mystical experience, maybe happening in prayer or meditation. Fascinating etymology, huh? Duden tells us the word was established by the Mittelhochdeutsch, that's the German spoken in the Middle Ages. Of course, this word Bildung had existed before Meister Eckhart used it in this sense. It actually comes from much earlier periods. Althochdeutsch, that would have been the period from 750 to 1000 in the common modern era, but that kind of period. So the word had existed before, but it was Meister Eckhart who placed it in this more modern meaning. I've already given you that word Bildnis. We have the idea of Schöpfung, creation, and also Gestalt, form and shape. Oh wow, Gestalt is another lovely German word. Americans and Brits often say Gestalt, and of course we use it in our psychology. I'll have to do another presentation on that wonderful word as well. That's the next one. Oh, isn't this good fun? Great. The Enlightenment roots of the word Bildung are what I want to talk about next. What was the Enlightenment? What was it? The age of reason, the age of science, the age of philosophy, the age of rational thought. This seemed to be a period of very, very fast intellectual development across Europe. The world was something that we could rationally think about and understand. Dare to know, have the courage to use your own understanding. Who said this? That's with your partner. Who said that? Where's that from? Well, yet another great German. Of course, Kant, in his very famous essay, What is Enlightenment, 1784. Actually, as an Anglo-Saxon, I'm often thinking about citizenship ideas, the idea of the person who's a kind of autonomous human being able to act in the world. Kant's expression, maturity, the educated subject. This was also the time when we had a lovely movement in our literature, the Bildungsroman. Hey, another wonderful German word, which you can't really translate. We use that expression in the English language too. What on earth was a Bildungsroman? You've heard that word before, haven't you? Press pause, natter with your partner. What was a Bildungsroman? And do you have a favourite one? That's a nice question, isn't it? Do you have a favourite one? Discuss. Bildungsroman, my ad hoc definition would be a novel. Roman is the German word for novel. A novel tracing the development of a character's personality through formative experiences happening to that character. And typically if a character is a young person, doesn't have to be, but typically if a character is a young person, maybe a young adult, having experiences, positive and negative, developing, learning about themselves and the world in the process of having these experiences. Your favorite one, hey, you might even have picked an English one. Lots of my favorites are from English literature. You know, you've got Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, most of their books could be defined in some sense as being Bildungsromane, or maybe your favorite book is Harry Potter, good for you. I think we can even make that fit by definition as well. I love these novels. Let's move on. So we're in this period of the Enlightenment. We're in this period where human knowledge expands, human capacities for creation expand very, very rapidly. We've got the natural sciences, we've got technological advancement. My image here, of course, illustrating the steam engine, the invention that kicked off the Industrial Revolution. On the one hand, this is liberating, this is freeing up capacity for human creation, which is exciting, but we note it also brought new dangers for concepts of education. Which dangers exactly? Once again, have a natter, discuss with your partner. I'm going to abruptly break off this presentation. I'm going to come to a close here. Of course, part 2 is coming up. Hope you enjoyed this one.